Am I online now? Recording. Well, it looks like the Senate has voted to retain net neutrality and overturn the FCC vote. As a result, we will looks like we will have the net neutrality again, officially. However, I'm not surprised that it was retained. I have long thought that it would not be overturned in the long run, simply because there are all sorts of corporate interests in favor of retaining net neutrality, meaning that we are living in a plutocracy, and it is basically money talks, and that is what the politicians are getting their orders from, the billionaires. So that's what I'm sure they were told to do something to retain net neutrality, and so that's what they did. When I'm talking about corporate interests, meaning mainly, well, not exclusively, but to a large extent, if the FANG stocks, which would be Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, those stocks, corporations, are very powerful. They control billions of dollars of the marketplace, and their market caps are in the I think over $1 trillion in value. So, and they will, if net neutrality was officially and for all practical purposes repealed, then they would be looking at having to fork over a great deal of money, which they do not like. As a result, I think they just ordered the senators to take a vote and overturn the FCC ruling, and make it look like a close vote. But I think that everybody got together and made sure that there would be enough votes to assist the corporate plutocrats that want the net neutrality retained, which I am happy about. I want net neutrality. I think it's a good thing, but the unfortunate thing is the only hope that us plebs have in getting favorable legislation, it seems, is if our interests are coincidentally the same as the plutocratic interests. Otherwise, it is a very steep uphill road trying to get any legislation passed that is just in our interests of the masses, the plebs, but against the interests of the plutocrats. For instance, the single-payer Medicare for all, that would be mainly in the interest of the general public, but it would be against the interests of the corporate insurance giants. So, as a result, even when the Democrats have control of the Capitol Hill, the presidency, House, and Senate, then we just get this Obamacare, which is just basically a gift to the insurance companies to continue with the same private insurance system. And now that it's showing to be not affordable, it's very unaffordable. And so, but now that we want to get some single payer going, it's I'm not at all confident still that even if the Democrats retake the presidency and the House and Senate, that we were going to get anything passed. There's still, even with that HR 676 Medicare for all, there are still a great number of Democratic representatives that have not voted for that, and that the only reason that has had gotten any momentum is that it's because the public is aware of. I mean, they can't get around it. It's all the difficulties involved with a private insurance system, and so that they face a lot of challenges from that, and so they put some pressure on the legislators, on the Democratic legislators, and so the Dems, the politicians, they have to act like they care and care about what the plebs have to say, and so they put out this token legislation, Medicare for all, but without ever having any intention of turning it into a law. It seems. Maybe I'm being a little cynical, but it seems like that's the way it goes. Another piece of legislation that would help the people, be in our interests, would be reenact Glass Steagall. However, that was repealed, but in a bipartisan manner under the Clinton administration, and if you would have thought that it was repealed, yeah, before the 2008 and 2009 financial crisis, you would have thought that it was kind of obvious that the repeal of Glass-Steagall directly led to that crisis, that banking crisis. But you would have thought that they would have seen the light and realized that they need to reenact Glass-Steagall. But the banks, who are the plutocratic, the financial banks, they do not want it reenacted. It would be not in their interests. It would be only in the interests of the general public, because effectively, by not having Glass-Steagall, you have this commingling allowed between the general traditional banking of lending and savings and the speculative investment banking. And it turns out, well, the traditional banking acts like effectively like a utility, whereby we need to where it acts like something that's absolutely necessary for our modern capitalistic economic system for it to run properly. If it were to completely collapse, then there could be an economic disaster. It could be cataclysmic, to the point where we would be facing a civil emergency. So the bankers know that we cannot let the traditional banking system collapse. So if they intermingle their speculative, risky investment banking with the traditional banking, the bankers know that if they mess up and make the wrong bets with the speculative side of their finance, they know that because if they fail, if the whole bank is allowed to fail, that could jeopardize the entire economic infrastructure of the country, because their investment banking is tied to their traditional banking. And so if one goes, if the investment banking goes, then their traditional banking side will go, and with it the utilitarian side, the valuable economic infrastructure side of the bank would also fall. And so these bankers know that we, the public, will have to bail them out in order to maintain the traditional banking side as a necessary, critical infrastructure utility. I think an interesting analogy would be to compare it to if some of the energy companies running power plants, if they decided that they're going to have a division within their energy company that dabbles in derivatives or gambling, like going to the racetracks, they can allowed to go gamble away their the money at the racetrack, and they would know that if they made the wrong bets, that then their company would collapse, and so would the energy company would no longer be able to run the power plants, and then they'd have to shut the power plant down, and so we would lose all our electricity, and there'd be blackouts all over the place. So we would the people would say, "Oh, we gotta bail them out. We gotta cover their bets because we can't let them go out of business because we need to have them there to run the power plants." And I think that's a good analogy for where we're at now, where we are at now without Glass-Steagall. So effectively, and then in the current environment of a no Glass-Steagall banking environment, the public the government, the people are effectively insuring the banks, but without the banks having to pay any insurance premium. So that's a great deal for them. That's a huge savings, so that they want to keep this current system. They're able to do this, to have this great insurance package, extremely valuable insurance package, without having to pay for it, without having to pay any premiums. This is how our system works, where it's run for the advantage of the plutocrats, and at the disadvantage of the people. If the people were in charge, if the politicians were acting in the people's interest, those politicians, those legislators, would reenact Glass-Steagall, so that we would not have to act as de facto insurers for the banks. But those politicians are clearly not acting in our interests. They're acting in the interests of the banking and finance. They're acting in the interests of Wall Street at the expense of Main Street. So that's why I think that I'm not surprised that net neutrality is retained, because that was in the interests of, first and foremost, of corporations that have a strong presence on the internet. They will be saving great deals of money by having net neutrality retained. And near plebs are just fortunate that our interests happen to be the same as the interests of the corporate giants. And that's all I wanted to say for now. Thank you and good luck.